Morning light slowly filled the small hair studio where Elena stood in front of the mirror, absent-mindedly fixing her hair. 25 years old, the age when life is supposed to be full of hope and dreams. But right now her gaze was tired, dimmed. Her hands automatically moved through her tools, combs, scissors, clippers. Being a hairstylist was not just a job for her. It was a way of surviving, a small island of stability in an ocean of uncertainty. Victor, a name that just a month ago had stirred excitement and tenderness, had now turned into a bitter knot of resentment. Their relationship had begun a year earlier, passionately and recklessly. He had seemed perfect, a successful mid-level manager, charming, attentive. Elena truly believed she had found love. But everything changed in a single moment. 2 lines on the pregnancy test became the sentence that ended their relationship. When she told Victor, his reaction was immediate and merciless. "Are you serious?" His voice grew colder with every word. "I'm not ready for a child, especially not now." She begged him, asked for support, searched his face for even a trace of the man she thought she knew. But there was no tenderness left in his eyes, only irritation and the desire to distance himself as quickly as possible. "This is your choice," he said. "I don't need these kinds of problems." The phone calls became less frequent, the messages shorter, and then they stopped completely. The betrayal was absolute. Elena felt fear rising inside her. Pregnancy was not only joy, it was enormous responsibility, especially when you were alone. Her hands instinctively rested on her stomach, barely noticeable, yet already so meaningful. Work at the salon became her refuge. Her clients did not know about her situation, and that ignorance protected her. Every haircut, every styling session became a small ritual of escape from heavy thoughts. By the end of each day, exhaustion came in waves. Elena understood that many challenges lay ahead: medical checkups, preparing for childbirth, financial worries, and all of it alone. When she returned home in the dark, she allowed herself to cry. These were tears of hurt and fear, but somewhere at the edge of them there was also hope. Her inner voice grew quieter, yet more certain. "I'll manage. I can do this. My baby and I will be together." In the silence of the apartment, that whisper sounded like a vow, a promise to herself, to her future child, and to the woman she was becoming. Tomorrow would bring a new day and a new life. Morning light timidly filtered through the thin curtains. Elena stood in front of the mirror, slowly running a comb through her hair, carefully studying her reflection. Her stomach was beginning to round, becoming a more and more visible reminder of the changes in her life. Her family's reaction had been far from supportive. When her mother learned about the pregnancy, she met the news with cold silence and practically turned away from her that very evening. Her father refused to speak to her at all, demonstratively walking into another room as if her presence itself offended him. Work was not much better. At the salon where Elena had worked for several years, the atmosphere grew tense. Colleagues whispered when she passed by. The manager hinted at a possible staff reduction, under the pretext of discussing matters with the owner. Those words cut deeply, but Elena pretended not to notice and continued working with the same dedication as always. Medical appointments were especially difficult. Loneliness felt sharper in hospital corridors, where other expectant mothers arrived with husbands and partners by their side. Elena was completely alone. Every visit to the doctor became a test of endurance. She had to gather all her inner strength just to keep from falling apart. Financial pressure kept mounting. Rent for her apartment, preparing for the baby's arrival, buying the bare essentials, everything required serious money. Elena began taking extra shifts, agreeing to work evenings and Saturdays at the salon. The internal battle with doubt became almost physically painful. Fear of the unknown and uncertainty in her own abilities were sometimes replaced by waves of stubborn determination. "I will handle this," she whispered to herself at night, staring at her reflection. The hardest moments were the evenings of complete silence, when there was no one to talk to, no one to share her worries with. Her phone stayed quiet. Her friends slowly drifted away, as if afraid to come too close to her broken situation. Yet strangely, Elena began to find comfort in the small victories. Each new day she survived felt like an achievement, a victory over circumstances, over fear, over her own weakness. She was learning to live again, to accept herself as she was. The last months of pregnancy became a time of inner transformation. Gradually, Elena began to understand that the child she was carrying was not a mark of shame, not a punishment, but an incredible gift of fate. One day, she truly realized it. She had a choice. She could be weak or strong, she could break or rise, and she chose to rise. Elena slowly ran her hand over her stomach, feeling a faint movement inside. "We'll make it," she whispered, looking out the window where the evening lights of the big city were flickering on, a city full of possibilities and hope. Winter morning wrapped the city in cold fog. Elena walked slowly down the street, holding her stomach, which was becoming more noticeable with each passing day. The day before, she had learned she was being let go from her job, officially due to staff reduction. Another silent blow from fate. Near an old brick building, she noticed an elderly woman struggling with heavy bags. Without thinking, Elena stepped forward. "Let me help you," she said, extending her hand. The woman looked at her carefully. "You're the girl, the one expecting my grandson, aren't you?" Everything inside Elena froze. She immediately recognized her, Victor's mother. She braced herself for judgment. Instead, the woman unexpectedly smiled. "Come in. Let's have some tea. My name is Valentina Petrovna." The apartment's interior felt old-fashioned and meticulously kept. Photographs everywhere, antique objects, books. On the walls hung portraits of men in military uniforms and women in elegant dresses from different eras. "My son is a disgrace," Valentina Petrovna said suddenly. "I know about what he did, and I know you're alone." The teacup trembled in Elena's hands. "My husband died early," Valentina Petrovna continued. "I raised my son by myself. I know what it means to be a mother without support." They talked for a long time. Valentina asked about Elena's plans, about her profession. When she learned Elena was a hairstylist, her eyes brightened. "I have acquaintances in the salon business. I can recommend you." This was more than an offer of help. It was the first ray of light after months of isolation. "I'm not asking you to forgive my son," Valentina Petrovna said firmly. "But I want to support you." She took out an envelope and handed it to Elena. "There's some money in here for advanced training courses and to help you get started." Tears filled Elena's eyes, a mixture of disbelief, relief, and gratitude. For the first time in a long while, she felt she was not completely alone. "A woman is always stronger than she thinks," Valentina Petrovna said softly, as if reading her thoughts, "especially when she becomes a mother." That conversation became a turning point. Elena's inner narrative began to shift, from helplessness to belief in herself. When she left Valentina's apartment, holding the envelope with money and phone numbers of new contacts, the gray winter day no longer seemed dull. It shimmered with unexpected color. Elena placed her hand on her stomach and smiled. The future no longer looked so terrifying. She did not yet know that this seemingly random turn of fate would become the beginning of her complete transformation. The labor was long and exhausting. Elena, accompanied by Valentina Petrovna, spent 14 long hours in the hospital, gripping the elderly woman's hand, the same woman who, over the past months, had become her closest support. And then she heard it. The first cry of her son. In that moment, all the pain, all the fear, all the humiliation she had endured over the past year faded into the background. Max, she whispered. That was the name she chose. He was born healthy and strong, with Victor's expressive eyes and Elena's determined chin. The first weeks of motherhood were overwhelming. Sleepless nights, constant anxiety, an almost crushing sense of responsibility. Every single day she learned how to be a mother, often feeling exhausted, sometimes unsure, but always fiercely protective. Valentina Petrovna stepped into the role of grandmother naturally. She helped with Max, supported Elena emotionally, and reminded her constantly that she was capable of more than she believed. The money for the advanced courses became a lifeline. Twice a week, while Max slept or stayed with Valentina, Elena attended classes in modern hairstyling techniques. You're more than just a good stylist, Valentina would tell her. You have talent, and now you have strength. Don't waste either. Alongside professional growth came legal action. Consultations with an attorney confirmed what Elena hoped. She had every right to pursue child support from Victor. The process was complicated. He resisted. His lawyer sent intimidating letters. There were attempts to delay hearings. But Elena did not step back. I'm not doing this for revenge, she told her attorney calmly. I'm doing this because my son deserves responsibility. Every court meeting, every signed document strengthened her. She was no longer the frightened girl who had cried alone in a dark apartment. She was becoming someone else, someone steady, grounded, unafraid. Her courses opened new horizons. She mastered advanced color techniques, precision cuts, styling for different hair textures. Instructors began praising her natural intuition, her ability to see the whole person, not just the hair. Financially, things were still tight. She took on extra clients, worked late, saved carefully. But slowly, stability returned. One day, during a class, a well-known city stylist reviewed her portfolio. You see faces differently, he told her thoughtfully. For you, hairstyling isn't technical. It's transformative. Those words stayed with her. Meanwhile, the court case moved forward. Victor continued resisting, but the evidence was clear. The law was on Elena's side. By the end of that year, she could barely recognize herself. Max was growing, healthy, energetic, curious, and Elena was no longer surviving. She was building. The day she stood in front of her first rented salon space, she felt something shift inside her. White walls, clean mirrors, modern chairs. The scent of fresh paint. It wasn't big, but it was hers. On opening day, sunlight poured through the windows. Elena carefully arranged her tools, adjusted decorative details, making sure everything was perfect. Each movement reflected the transformation she had gone through. She remembered the version of herself who once felt ashamed abandoned, terrified. That woman no longer existed. Her phone rang. It was her attorney. "The court ruled fully in your favor," she said. "Regular child support payments have been ordered." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. It wasn't about money. It was acknowledgement, responsibility, justice. That evening, after Max fell asleep, she allowed herself to sit in silence. On her desk lay contracts, business plans, and a framed photo of her son. Next to it, a small notebook filled with loyal client contacts. Her client base grew steadily. Women came not just for haircuts, they came for confidence, for conversation, for warmth. Years passed. The small salon turned into 2 locations, then 3. Max turned 5. Her life expanded in ways she once could not imagine. And then there was Roman, an architect, calm, patient, kind. He loved Max as his own. There were no conditions, no shadows of doubt. He stood beside Elena not as a rescuer, but as a partner. They built a real family. One afternoon, as sunlight filled her now spacious office, Elena held 5-year-old Max in her arms and looked out the window, remembering everything she had survived. Her phone rang unexpectedly. Victor. She hadn't seen his name on her screen in years. "Hello?" she answered evenly. "Hi, Elena. I wanted to talk." His voice sounded uncertain, smaller somehow. "I saw your salon. Congratulations." There was something in his tone, regret, maybe. Elena looked at Max, laughing across the room, at the framed photo from her very first salon, at the memory of Valentina Petrovna, the first person who had believed in her when no one else did. Victor once felt like the center of her world. Now he felt like a distant echo. "Max is doing well," she said calmly. "That's what matters." After the call ended, she stood by the window for a long time. Max ran over. "Mom, can I go outside with Dad?" he asked excitedly, glancing at Roman. Roman smiled and winked at her. They were a family, the kind she had once dreamed of while crying alone in the dark. Elena remembered the day she found out she was pregnant. The fear, the silence, the abandonment. It hadn't been the end. It had been the beginning. She hadn't just survived betrayal. She had created a life. Her triumph wasn't about proving anything to Victor. It wasn't about revenge. It was about becoming whole, strong, free, and deeply, completely happy. And that victory belonged entirely to her.